And then we can go to the other side where we visualize ourselves of I sit with this urge, I don't eat the food, I take some deep breaths, I get through this, and I feel overwhelmingly proud of myself. I'm saying, go me. My brain pathways are literally starting to rewire themselves. So when I get to this point in the night tomorrow, I'm feeling more powerful. I'm feeling more motivated. I feel like I've got this. I'm feeling more energized throughout my day. And that creates a very positive future memory for your brain. And that makes it more likely that you'll want to actually sit through these cravings.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our mission is simple yet powerful, and is to help you live your best audacious life ever. I'm thrilled that you're here with us, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us on this valuable journey. Each week we dive into conversation that inspire, motivate, and equip you with the tools you need to pursue your dreams fearlessly. Now, think of your journey of fulfilling life as an adventurous trek through an unknown terrain. Along the way, there'll be obstacles and detours and sometimes unexpected storms. In today's episode, we'll explore some of the challenges that can throw us off course. Specifically, we're going to land on the triggers that lead to binge eating. Understanding these triggers is essential for recovery and helps to stay on a path towards a healthier, more joyful life. Now, self-compassion acts like your trusted guide or your sturdy compass, helping you navigate setbacks and stay steady on your journey. Rewiring your brain through habit awareness is like packing the right supplies. It strengthens your foundation and equips you for the long road ahead. Mindful eating practices are the map and checkpoints, helping you stay connected to your body's needs and signals. And recognizing a scarcity mindset around food is like spotting the tricky terrain before you stumble. It allows you to plan your steps carefully instead of reacting out of fear. Today, we have an incredible guest joining us, Amber Abila, as a binge eating and overeating coach who specializes in helping individuals heal their relationship with food and their bodies. Amber's mission is to empower her clients to break free from restrictive dieting and develop a healthier, more balanced approach to eating. Her own journey through the struggles of binge eating led her to discover transformative solutions that she now shares with others. With her personal experience and professional insights, Amber is the perfect guide for a discussion today on reclaiming control and joy around food. So with all that being said, let's dive into our chat with Amber. Enjoy. Hey, Amber, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to be here, so thank you.
Thanks so much for having me on today, Audley. I'm excited to talk and share my story.
Yeah, no, it's, we just said a second ago, the opportunity to, inspire people through our conversation. If you think about it, Amber, we're going to have a conversation and people have an opportunity to eavesdrop on what we're saying. And, they can potentially take stuff away and go, oh, wow, this is something great I can use in my life, or this has inspired me, or we never know, how our stories, because everyone has a story, and we never know that right story comes on at the right time, that give you the right motivation, that right, fuel to push forward. And so that's why I love about this. So maybe as a starting point, if maybe I can introduce yourself to our audience, tell a little bit, what got you to the point that you're at now, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm Amber Abila. I am a binge eating and overeating coach, and I help people heal their relationship with food in their bodies by rewiring their brain so they can eat any food in control and in moderation. So my journey started back in 2015 when I really struggled with the whole spectrum of eating disorders, disordered eating, overeating, binge eating, undereating, like really everything in between. And it started with calorie counting because I wanted to lose weight. And that is what, if you go to the internet, it tells you how to do: calories in, calories out. So you just need to eat less, move more. And slowly but surely, I started forming this obsession around calorie counting where I was so scared to trust my body without it. I needed to take my fitness pal with me to all the restaurants, to everywhere. It was truly like my best friend. But over time, I was really strict with it. And I did start to lose weight. But that was also when I started binge eating. So I remember my first binge so clearly. It was around Christmas time. And we had some cookies downstairs. I snuck downstairs and was like, okay, Ben's so good. I'm just going to have one. And then I had one, and then I was filled with this overwhelming desire for more. And I had another and another and another until I'd had 7 cookies. And to me, that was absolutely terrifying. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been doing all this hard work to lose weight. I feel like I've ruined it. And that was also the first time I ever purged. So I did struggle with bulimia for a time period as well. And after a couple months of that, I just realized that I wasn't getting any better on my own. I was continuing to binge weekly and then daily, and it was impacting the rest of my life. I wasn't able to show up how I wanted to show up.
Right.
So I decided to go to therapy, which is where most people tend to go to at first for their eating struggles if they are ready to let go of diets and take more of this mindset approach to it. And while therapy helped me a lot with the bulimia side of things, it never really helped me with the binge eating. And I felt so broken, like there must be something wrong with me if I wasn't finding a solution in therapy. We kept going to my past, and I didn't have any like huge, ginormous trauma where I was like, yes, I could see how this might have led to it. So I just felt so stuck. I started going out on my own to see what other solutions were out there. And I remember I one day got to page 50 on Google of how to stop binge eating. And it was all the same things of just drink more water, eat more protein, take a bubble bath, call a friend. And like I was already doing all of those things. But then I came across a blog post that talked about how this woman had started viewing binge eating as a habit, where it was just, there was nothing wrong with her. It was just, she had started dieting at one point, and then she had binged. And then the more she binged, the more her brain learned that this is a habit she wanted to keep. And when I saw that, that was really the moment that everything changed for me and became simplified in my recovery, because I was able to see, if I just stop acting on this habit, my brain can literally rewire itself and unlearn this brain pathway. And that's what helps me stop binge eating. It's just like any other habit we do. The reason we want to brush our teeth every morning is because we get this like little bit of an urge because we've done it every single day for the last, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So it makes sense that we want to do binge eating again. If we've been doing it over and over and over again, our brain's going to predict that that's something we actually want to do and send us these strong urges and cravings to do so.
And the idea of when we talk about the rewiring of our brain, sometimes I've heard conversations around you replace habits with other behaviors, and that creates a new neural pathway, and then that thing that you're doing before no longer exists. Is that sort of something you'd recommend people do, like sort of looking at replacing behaviors or other things they could do?
That is definitely a common approach, and it's not a wrong thing to do. So, for example, if every night at 8 p.m. after dinner you binge, and right now you want to kind of change that routine up and maybe go for a walk instead, it can help for sure to kind of shake up that brain pathway and kind of offer an alternative. But I wouldn't say it's like the root cause solution, because we need to understand why we're binge eating in the first place then. If you just go for a walk in place of binge eating, you're probably going to come back for the walk and still binge. That's at least what happened to me. So like you can try replacing it. And again, it might be helpful, but it's really important to look at, again, why are we wanting to binge in the first place? And that's usually because one of two reasons. One, if you're still dieting, if you're still restricting, which looks like not giving yourself food when you're hungry, consistently pushing off meals for long periods of times, not giving yourself balanced meals of protein, carbs, fat, and fiber. Your brain is going to biologically send you these strong urges that are almost impossible to not act on, because they are coming from this place of survival. It is our brain trying to help us survive. Think about if you went days without water and someone put a glass of water in front of you and told you to not drink it. You're going to have an incredibly hard time doing that because you need the water. Your brain is going to do everything in its power to make sure you drink that water and survive. So that's what's going to happen in our brain if we are still dieting and restricting. So the first thing is always making sure we're getting in enough food. I recommend always getting in breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you're struggling with food, and then maybe a fourth meal in there or a snack if you feel like you need it. And that will help get us into a regular rhythm. But then the second thing we need to look at is this habit pathway and start to get this awareness around, why is this habit happening? And a lot of times that's because we're creating desire in our brain with our thoughts. What that means is, think about if I hold up a glass of water, we'll use this example again, and I start telling myself how this is the best glass of water in my life. And I don't think I'm ever going to get this good of water again. And diet starts tomorrow and I'm not going to get water, so I better get it in right now. And it's going to be so tasty and I'm going to feel so good when I drink it. Like I have now actively created a lot of desire for this water when, I'm really thirsty. And I didn't necessarily have that before. So that's kind of what we do in our brain around food. We tell ourselves, oh, we got to be good tomorrow. So, and I don't know if I'm going to get this delicious food again. So let me just eat it all right now. That's going to make you want to binge more than if you learn how to change those thoughts and think something differently.
I've never thought of it that way, actually. The fact that that those habits are creating that need to want to binge. That's new one for me. Interesting. Is that primarily where binge urges come from, or again, because I know you mentioned earlier about the relationship with food. I'm wondering, is that a part of one of the sources as well too?
Yeah, so that's what I call more of a scarcity mindset around food, where we feel like food is a scarce resource. Another good example of this that I think is easy to understand is most people have dated someone or had a partner that they were kind of obsessed with at one point. And notice how you'll put them on a pedestal in your head where you'll be like, oh, no one will ever love me like they do. They're just like this perfect person. Like, I'll never find someone like them. And when we put them on this pedestal, we want them more. And that's what we do with food too. When really it's just this person, sure, maybe they're great, but just another human at the end of the day. There's other great humans like them. There's other good foods that we can have again at another time. But we get in the scarcity mindset that's usually taught to us by dieting. So yes, like I would really look at, one, are we eating enough? That's a big root cause. But then also, are we creating desire with our thoughts? And along with that usually comes from this scarcity mindset. But then there's just this habit component itself, or again, if you've eaten every single night at 8 p.m. for the last 4 or 5 years, your brain's going to predict that you want to do that again. Our brains are predictive machines. That's how they work, because that's what saves energy. It doesn't have to think every single day, what do we want to do today? With our most basic habits. How do we want to drive our car today? It'd be exhausting. So our brain automates these things. And so it started to automate our eating habits too, sometimes in a way we don't want them to. And for that, we really need to start to get awareness around it. That's always the first step. So I recommend people starting to just really get curious of, when do I notice these strong urges around food coming up? Is there a certain time of day? Is there a certain situation? Is it when I'm at parties? It's when I come home and I see that the kids haven't done the dishes. Whatever it is, trying to find that specific situation where you tend to always go to food in, because then you can start to expect, okay, I know that my brain is going to tell me it wants a lot of food and to binge right now. But the good news about binge eating is, I work with people on overeating too, but binge eating is, I think, even easier to work on because it's very clear that it's something you don't want to do, where overeating can get a little bit more nuanced. And a lot of times with food, people will say, I just wish I could go cold turkey on it, like you could with alcohol or drugs. But the thing is, you can go cold turkey on binge eating. Binge eating is not something you ever need to do again in the rest of your life. You need to eat, but you don't need to binge ever again. So you can go into these situations reminding yourself, my brain's going to think I need a lot of food because that's what I've always done. But the truth is, I have been nourishing my body today. I am not hungry. I do not need a lot of food, and I'm safe to sit with this feeling of over desire, of too much desire for food, and I'm going to get through it. And that is what will help me rewire and change my brain. So that way the next night that comes around, it will be so much easier because I have now voted in my brain that this isn't something I want to do anymore.
Right. So it really, really is about breaking the habit. That's, as you're talking and as you're explaining it, that's really it's what it is. This habit that needs to be broken. I'm curious about how you help your clients see that as well and shift that perspective, because you must know this, is that you're talking about people who are probably dealing with this for a very, very long time. Or maybe it's a way of life for them. That's all they've ever done, and don't see it as a habit. It sort of feels like this is just what I do, right? So I'm just curious about that process of awareness, understanding.
Mhm. So let's talk about what a habit even is.
Okay.
There is this habit loop that happens. So first there is a trigger. There is something that activates this brain pathway to say, do this thing. And that is what I was talking about, of gaining awareness around what are these triggers? What are these things that I start to think about food around or start to want to binge? So we have the trigger, which is or also known as the cue. And then we have these urges. These urges are that craving, that desire, that wanting to do the thing. It's where the dopamine gets released and drives us to do that behavior. And then we do the behavior, and then we get the reward. So after we act, we get this reward, which is the food, we get a little high of it, and that reinforces the pathway and says, hey, brain, you got a little reward from that. Let's make sure to do it again. What most people get wrong is they only focus on the trigger or the cue itself. They think, oh, well, if my husband always irritates me, I must need to get a divorce. Or if parties are always the problem, I can't go to parties anymore. And they start to eliminate all these triggers from their life, which really makes your life very small. It can work if you want to just hide in a cave for the rest of your life, but that's a very, hard way to live. And you want to be able to go out there and experience your life without having to deal with the desire to binge. So what we need to look at is not how to change the trigger, but how to change our response to those triggers. And that's where the urge comes in. So I do a lot of work with clients on how do we learn to sit with this urge. And I mentioned briefly a couple minutes ago about how it is this feeling of over desire. So understanding that we have a normal desire of food, which is hunger. And then we have too much desire for food, which is to binge or to overeat. We don't need that much food.
Gotcha.
So one thing I'll offer your listeners is I have a guided audio to help you get through urges, and it's a really valuable tool, something I wish I desperately had in my journey. So if you go to my website, and I'll give you the link for it, it will be there. But basically what I do in this audio is I give you a few reminders. So something to know about urges is they are harmless, they are powerless, and they are meaningless. Harmless meaning they can't hurt us. I literally told myself, you are not going to die by sitting with this urge. And it sounds kind of funny. We're like, well, yeah. But in that moment, it can literally feel like, if I don't eat food right now, I'm going to die. So it's like, I'm not going to die. This isn't going to hurt me. This is just thoughts I'm having about food that are creating sensations in my body. And I can handle sensations in my body. So they're harmless. They're powerless, meaning they can't make us act. So one of the favorite exercises I like to do for this is if you sit on your hands and you think, touch my nose, touch my nose, touch my nose, you're not going to touch your nose until your higher brain says, okay, lift up your hands and touch your nose, showing us that we are always in control of our actions. Nothing comes over us. There's no, magic ghost that takes over our body and leads us to the cabinets. We still make that decision for ourselves. And it's important to remember that we're not going to do anything unless we give our brain the okay. Right. And we learn this as toddlers. Don't hit someone. It's your responsibility to keep your hands to yourself. So it's a skill we learned very early on too. And then finally, they're meaningless, meaning, yes, it's good to look into our urges sometimes and kind of see where they're coming from. But I see a lot of people trying to overanalyze them and be like, what does this mean? Is this some of my trauma coming up? Right. It can be on occasion, but for majority of people I see and work with, it's just simply your brain has formed a habit and it's just trying to repeat it as a loop, like on a record. And so we just need to dismiss it away, kind of like brain junk of this isn't something I need to pay attention to. This isn't something I need to act on. I can just move throughout my day. So those are some reminders that I go through on a smaller level in the audio. But I also take people through a visualization. Visualization is such a powerful tool. There have been studies of people who have practiced playing piano every day and who have imagined practicing playing piano every day, and they learn the same amount, showing us that our brain does not really know the difference between something we imagine and something that happens in real life. Right. So we can give our brain a future memory of how we want to be or what will happen of how we don't want to be. So I like to take people through of seeing, okay, let's imagine I do eat this food right now. Okay, we eat it. Maybe it feels good for a second, but then I look around me, I see all the wrappers, I feel the shame, my stomach is stretched, I feel that blood sugar high, and I want to lie down, and it's like, ooh, okay. And then the next day I wake up, I'm still feeling those effects, I didn't sleep well last night. So that shows your brain the future memory of that's painful, and I don't want to do that. And then we can go to the other side where we visualize ourselves of I sit with this urge, I don't eat the food, I take some deep breaths, I get through this, and I feel overwhelmingly proud of myself. I'm saying, go me. My brain pathways are literally starting to rewire themselves. So when I get to this point in the night tomorrow, I'm feeling more powerful. I'm feeling more motivated. I feel like I've got this. I'm feeling more energized throughout my day. And that creates a very positive future memory for your brain. And that makes it more likely that you'll want to actually sit through these cravings.
Yeah, it does. It does. I can see that. I'm curious. So when we talk about those urges, there are times they come real fast, right? Like you said, for example, all of a sudden you had 7 cookies. Like, so I guess it's a process of slowing your mind down, or even slowing down to give yourself that time to think and to do some of that self-talk that you referenced.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's a big common thing that I work on with my clients is like, oh my gosh, this happened so fast. And then I'm like done. And then what even happened? So the reason that happens is because, again, it's become such a strong habit that your brain isn't even thinking about it, right? It's like when we drive home and we're like, oh, how did we get home? I don't even remember even stopping at the stoplights because our brain has just like allowed ourselves to go on autopilot so easily. So first, people will usually start to recognize it after the fact, and that is still awareness. So if it happens and you're like, oh no, I forgot to use my tools, I forgot to breathe through this, I forgot to like look at what was going on, look at it now. Look at it after the fact and say what was going on. See what insights you can gain. And then you might recognize it in the middle of it, where you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. Okay, good. Now I can stop. I can stop at any point in time, even if there's one bite of the food left. I can choose to
Right.
stop. And then eventually you'll start to realize it in the beginning before it happens. Something else I recommend is I'm a big advocate of mindful eating in my coaching
Mhm.
because, again,
And
there's
what,
so
what's
many
mindful?
studies around
What's
that.
mindful eating? What's mindful eating?
Great question. Good to define. So, mindful eating is just bringing in this intentional awareness and focus to the practice of eating. So, when we're saying we're being mindful, it's like we're bringing in our full mind into an experience.
Okay.
So, what that looks like specifically is for most of the US and people around the world, we are scrolling our phones, we are watching TV, we are so in our head, we're so stressed, we're eating a million miles an hour. That is not very mindful eating. Our attention is not on the food, it is a million other places.
Right.
So, mindful eating is simply eliminating those distractions, bringing your attention to the food, and seeing what we can notice about it. Seeing what does this taste like? What are the textures, the temperatures, the flavors? Where is my body at? Am I hungry? Am I starting to get close to full? What does do I have any emotions coming up today? Where do I notice those in my body? So, it's really just bringing a lot of attention and intentionality to the whole experience of eating, and this is a practice that will help you in other areas of life too, beyond food, but also help you so you start being just more present in your life. And that can help with the awareness around these cravings and when they're happening, and being more present for them. But I say, it's not just mindful eating, it's really a value shift that has to happen for us because most of us do not value mindfulness in our life. And that's okay because that's not really what we're taught in our society that's
Right.
capitalistic and go, go, go all the time. So the more you can like slow down in your day and pause and pay attention, or even being on a walk and think, wow, look what a beautiful day it is. Like listening to the birds chirping, noticing the flowers that you see on your walk. That will help you start to be able to change really any habit easier because
Yes.
you're not so zoned out of your life.
I'm really interested in sort of getting your perspective on the importance of giving ourselves grace. You think at whether the times we have to sit with the emotions like you talked about earlier, or maybe along our journey, we hit a bump and we kind of go off the rails. We got to get back on again. I think in either of those instances, grace is really, really important. I wonder if I can get your perspective on that.
Absolutely. So what I say is it's rarely the first cookie that's the problem. It is when you say, oh my gosh, I ruined it all. I'm being so bad. And then you go have five more cookies after it. So that's what we want to look at is like, what am I actually beating myself up over here? Because it's usually we're being so hard on ourselves in a way that we don't need to be. And we want to think about what happens when we act that way around ourselves and we talk to ourselves that way. Think about if you had a friend and you told them, you're just doing a horrible job, you've messed it all up, you're never going to amount to anything, you're never going to solve this. Oh my gosh, you would not be friends with that person. That person would probably give up. They'd probably say, yeah, you're right. You know what? This is too hard for me. So what if instead we told, like we do with our best friends, no, you've got this. You're doing amazing. I know you're so capable of this. Being a cheerleader for them, that's what we have to do to ourselves. Because when we do that for the friend's like, you know what? I do got this. You're right. I'm going to go try it. And then they go and try again. So we want to look at our experience of if beating ourselves up worked, it would give us the results we wanted. And it usually doesn't. It usually leads to us moping around, wanting to lay in bed all day, turn on Netflix, and just say, you know what? There's no hope. It doesn't usually motivate us to say, you know what? Yeah, let's go to the gym. Let's make it a good day. Let's meal prep. Let's do all the things. Like that comes from being loving and kind and motivating and encouraging to ourselves, not the other way around.
Yeah, no, I agree, and even myself, not in relation to binge eating, but even in general, like I'm very mindful of even what I say to myself, and like and it's really easy, like you make a mistake, oh, you're so dumb, or people sometimes do that, and we don't realize we are chipping away at ourselves every time we do that, And so
Mhm.
it's so important that we build ourselves up, particularly when we're looking at stuff. Okay, we'll use binge eating now. Like, I've got to deal with this issue. The last thing I need is to me tearing myself down when I need my full self to combat this thing, right? And so,
Mhm.
I sort of can't say enough about just again how important it is for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, there's emotional eating. It's not always like oftentimes negative feelings are associated with emotional eating, but that's not always the case as you sort of talked to now, is it?
Yeah, so, my take on emotional eating is it's definitely a thing, but I don't always think it's as big of a thing as people make it out to be. There's a lot of other amazing coaches out there, but like they only focus on the emotional side of things. And some of the other things we talked about earlier today, I think are oftentimes more important and not as talked about enough in eating spaces. But emotional eating can definitely be a thing, and it can definitely be something that can also become a habit where every time we eat, when we are feeling anxious, that is also creating a new brain pathway. So now every time we feel anxious, our brain suggests food. So that can become a habit loop in itself. Um, but with emotional eating, the biggest thing that is kind of my unique perspective on is we don't need to work on changing our emotional state so much as we need to learn how to sit with those emotions and be in them. Again, going back to everyone told me to take a bubble bath, call a friend, like do all these things to make myself feel better. But the underlying missing core skill within that was, can I make sure that I know I am okay in the hard emotions? Because our life is going to be 50-50 no matter who we are, what we do. We see celebrities all the time who are sad and depressed. Having money, being famous is not what makes you happy, despite what maybe some of our brains tell us. And so knowing that no matter who you are in the world, you're gonna have this experience of 50% positive emotions, 50% not so positive emotions. We need to learn how to be there for ourselves and to safely sit with any emotion. So, what this looks like is, you're going throughout your day, you're starting to feel stressed. Instead of saying, oh no, I'm feeling stressed, how can I get out of this right away? I want you to just pause and go into your body and say, where am I noticing this emotion? And even stress, a lot of people say they're stressed. I don't really think stress is an emotion. I think that's a very like umbrella way to describe some specific things. So
Mhm.
maybe you're overwhelmed. Maybe you're afraid. Maybe you are anxious. Maybe you're feeling a little bit sad or depressed. Like those are a little bit more specific and better to identify. And then once we do that, we can go into our body and say, where am I noticing this? Do I feel it in my chest, in my stomach, down in my feet and legs? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel light? Does it feel fast, slow, energetic? Not energetic. So all of these descriptors is what actually helps us process emotion because it takes us out of our head and into our body. Right? Emotions are energy in motion. So they are meant to be felt energetically. They are not really meant to be thought out of, at least in the beginning. We can go into some strategies to change our thoughts, which often lead to our emotions. But the first step is always to go into our body and start to process those emotions by noticing where they are. And that will help show you too that they're safe to feel. Going back to the urge thing is like urges are just this energy in your body, these thoughts that are creating sensations. So you're just feeling sensations in your body. And when you can say, I'm feeling sad and this feels like heaviness in my heart, that's dark blue and really soft and slow. And I can sit with a dark blue, slow, soft energy and I can get through my day, then you don't feel the need to escape it with food so much anymore. You just sit with it until it passes.
It the process. It's funny. Like, on one hand, when you think about the whole rewiring process and changing, sort of creating neural pathways, if you will, it sounds more complex than it actually is, right?
Mhm.
Because we're talking about some big concepts, some big that's backed by science, but really what we're doing is we're creating new habits that will serve us better. And that's really the best way to sum it up, what I'm hearing loud and clear. It must be simply wonderful to work with clients and to get them to coach them to that realization. Are there any sort of success stories or things that you can share that really sort of highlight just how the work that you're doing and how profound it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So one that comes to mind right now is I had a client recently who really struggled with eating peanut butter. Anytime she had peanut butter in the house, it was like a third of the jar gone instantly. And she really wanted to learn how to have just a little bit of peanut butter. I teach what I call like these natural eating habits, which is basically how to eat these like the normal eaters who just can have some peanut butter on the bread and just move on with her day. So I teach something in my program called the trigger food process, which is basically where we teach your brain this abundance mindset around food and how to stop feeling so scarce around it, like I need to get it all in right now. And we also use visualization with that, which is a technique that I use a ton in my coaching, in my sessions with clients. So what we did is we had her really once we did the work around her thoughts to make sure she didn't feel scarce around it, felt like, okay, I can have peanut butter anytime. I can have it today, tomorrow, whenever I want it. I feel good about that. Then we walked through a visualization where we imagined herself going into the kitchen, opening up the cabinets, taking out her little teaspoon that she wanted to have, taking the teaspoon of peanut butter, putting it on her plate, putting away the peanut butter, like she put it on her plate with her lunch, sitting down with her lunch, enjoying the peanut butter, putting the spoon back in the dishwasher, closing it up, leaving the kitchen. So very specific steps, which is important when we're visualizing. And she was able to have just 1 teaspoon of peanut butter down from 1/3 of the jar. And she's still doing that weeks later. So she's so, over the moon about it. And I'm over the moon about it for her as well, because I think it is such a powerful moment when we can see we're not broken, we're not out of control around food. We just need to make some shifts that are so different than what we're taught from dieting that will help us get to the place of where we want to be around food.
I love that. I mean, first, I'm a big peanut butter fan myself, so I can relate to some of the challenges of overcoming just not having it through the jar. But aside that, I just love the idea of introducing almost like self-control, if you will, right? Like you're teaching individuals how to to have more control of self in these situations. And that I gotta tell you, Amber, that is so empowering. It really, really is to know that a situation that you thought was uncontrollable or over your head or you couldn't overcome, and then get to the point where no, you have control and your confidence about your ability to overcome it is increased. So no, I think it's a wonderful thing, man. Beautiful, beautiful thing where you're empowering people.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Um, for listeners that wanted to connect with you directly or learn more about your work, where can we send them?
Yeah. So first, I have a podcast of my own. It's called Become a Confident Eater. So if you are looking for weekly tips and tricks around how to stop binging, how to stop overeating, how to eliminate food noise, eat everything in moderation, all of that good stuff, I talk about all of that on my podcast. You can also find me at my website, theconfidenteater.org. That is where I have my audio to help you stop a binge. You can also find more about my program on my website. I also have a free Facebook support group. If you look up Become a Confident Eater on Facebook, you can find a support group that you can go in and ask me questions there. I have an Instagram, The Confident Eater. So I'm really all over. You can find me anywhere. I'm usually somewhere around the long lines of The Confident Eater.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And even interesting, going back to something you said earlier about just when you were talking about going through therapy and that it is supported, so the bulimia piece of what you're dealing with, but the binge wasn't effective at all, and that really speaks to, and you even referenced to the lack of resources around binge eating specifically, and so the fact that you've put yourself out there in a way and created those wonderful resources. I think it's a beautiful thing. So congratulations, because it really sounds like you said page 50 you got to in the Google search. Is that?
Yeah. And what's interesting too is binge eating was actually only recognized as an eating disorder in 2013. So that was only 12 years ago. So because of that, it's not as well researched and well understood at some of the other eating disorders. And also because of that, if you go to a therapist, for example, who went to school before then, they didn't even learn about it in school. And the people who did after, they might have learned about it in school. But again, it's a newer thing that people are learning about. And so I think it's so important to have someone who has been there themselves too and has been in your shoes and actually understands it versus someone who just learned about it like conceptually, because it really helps you feel less alone too and really know that you have someone on your team, on your side, who has themselves come out of it as well.
So that's so powerful again, and encouraging on individual journeys. Just to think that 2013, it wasn't long ago, first and foremost, and second, up until that point, it was existing and nothing was happening. There was no resources and help and support available, and that's a little shocking. But I mean, that's in the past. Move forward. We're doing our part now. You're certainly doing your part, and so we're excited to be able to have listeners engage with you. So thank you for this. Congratulations on your journey, and thanks for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Audley. I appreciate it.
Back we are here on the podcast, and what an enlightening conversation with Amber. One of the main points that stood out for me was how she understands those triggers that can facilitate recovery from binge eating. Amber really emphasized that it's not just about modifying the behavior, but understanding the underlying patterns that lead us to those habits. Personally, I loved how she integrated self-compassion into her approach. It's a powerful reminder that on any journey, especially a challenging one, we need to be kind to ourselves. Rather than punishing ourselves, we should cultivate that inner guide who encourages us to keep moving forward even when the path gets tough. If you found Amber's insights as valuable as I did, I encourage you to connect with her directly. You can find her links to her website, podcast, and social media profiles in the show notes below. Amber also offers a variety of resources, including some guided audios to help you through urges and a supportive community to anyone looking to improve their relationship with food. Also, be sure to check out some offers that she has. She's a lot of stuff to give to people, and very, very giving, and I'm glad that she's able to provide something to people that help kickstart their journey towards a more balanced approach to eating. As we wrap up today's episode, let's return to our adventure analogy. Just as a traveler learns to navigate challenges by using the right tools, awareness, and guidance, we too must equip ourselves with the self-compassion, mindful practices, and understanding of our triggers. Remember, every step forward, no matter how small, is a progress on our unique journey. Thank you for joining us on another edition of the Audacious Living Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, or share with a family or friend. Your support helps us continue bringing you insights to live audaciously. Until next time, keep moving forward and embracing your audacious adventure. Stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.